Hi, this is Marisha Trembetska for my Love Your Creativity and Make Money podcast. And this week I'm really thinking and musing about questions about 2021, about budgeting for live events and how we're all going to start getting back into the world. Now, obviously, as this podcast is, I talk about the very kind of how you make work and how you kind of just get it finished and over the line. But you know, I've been making work and touring it now for decades plus, nearly 20 years over the time I've been producing shows of my own work and getting it out there. So I've kind of done every single mistake going. So, of course, the way I now tend to look at how I'm going to put a show on, where it's going and the costing of it. I'm really clear about it. And it's really come to the fore at the moment because, of course, yes, we've been in lockdown forever. But now people are asking me questions about next year. And I'm like, well, we all need to suddenly look about how we can be even more creative. And I know we are pretty creative about our budgets for putting on work, whether that's releasing a film or a novel, because traditional ways of marketing work have kind of died at the moment. And equally, any kind of live event, from a stand-up show to, just kind of having a load of cabaret artists in a room doing fabulous things. All the logistics, not only does it stop, but how are we going to get started again? And I do think it's something I am looking at. I'm particularly looking at it because one of my venues for what was going to be Brighton Fringe 2020 emailed me this week about next year. Now, the plan was 2020, I was taking the singing psychic game show, which I love, to Brighton. This thing's toured the world now, and I love it. And I've not actually done Brighton Fringe since 2010, where I did a very cute show called Cooking and Cabaret with a fabulous friend of mine, Elizabeth Mee. And the plan was that Liz was writing a new show for this year. I was going to take my singing psychic show and also my sexual politics piece, Queen of the Fucking World, which, I mean, I love doing both works, but I understand now logistically if I can do each show once a day, and I've done it whether it's at Edinburgh or Australia or the plan was I was going to do, one of each show a day in Brighton for 10 days. And Brighton Fringe said, well, if you want to cancel, we'll give you 70% of your money back that you've paid for being in Brighton Fringe and also the ability to use a ticketing service and all that stuff. Or if we can just roll it over to 2021. So one venue who are amazing. They both seem very cool, but the ones I know quite well, they said, well, we're just going to cancel 2020 and let's just look again next year. But my other venue, where I hadn't really heard much from them for the last 6 months, and of course I've got skin in the game, I've paid them money, etc. I've come back and said, oh, let's look at next year. You're in our diary. We think it's going to happen. But I've gone, well, hang on a second. I've got to really pull out my spreadsheets because whenever I do a show, whether I'm taking it somewhere, and I'm hopefully you all do this, and if you don't, I'm going to encourage you to start. Have a look at the cost. Is there a cost to the venue? Is there a cost to the travel? Is there a cost to accommodation? Is there a cost to posters? Do you need somebody else on the door? Do you need extra bit of tech? Do you have staff or band members or other people? Are you splitting that cost or is it all under you? What happens if you don't sell enough tickets? What is your ticket price? Is there, as there often are, commission fees that have to be paid elsewhere? So when I'm ever doing a show, and I will talk about this in length at a later podcast about how I do it, but I really do look at all those things and then try and work out where is my break even. Yeah, super businessy, but the reason I do have a career as a creative, I mean, I feel like I have a certain amount of, well, do I have a lot of talent? I'm not sure. I don't think I do have a lot of talent. I do have a lot of persistence. And I have some quite clever ideas, and I've been doing it long enough that I've become reasonably good at it, I would argue. I've done way more than my 10,000 hours on stage. So I do know that if people hire me to do any one of my live shows, or I'm emceeing, or I'm, doing talks, I don't, or as an actor, I've kind of done my hours in. So I feel comfortable. But I do feel a lot of my success is because I look at it. How are we marketing this? Not necessarily with a budget. How are we moving this show forward? What is happening? And I guess with my singing psychic work, the idea came up, I think for me in 2007, I'm going to say, definitely 2007, 2008. it took years to kind of finally get her on its feet, but she's had lots of different views. There's 3 different versions of the show. There's very many different, there's a podcast now. There's lots of readings. I've done huge amounts of corporate work, including, I did a Tedx talk as her. I've done the Brit Awards as her. I've done radio and TV. But that's all me going, right, how do I keep pushing the brand forward? And of course now, don't forget, I do have the podcast, which I only started this year in lockdown, and I'm developing the DJ Singing Psychic brand of her because I need to keep moving forward. But I'm like, if I say yes to this one venue and stick to the budgetary demands that I've agreed that, the venue is going to cost X per night, and of course there's going to be a fee of whoever's running the door at this, and obviously there's fees I have already paid, which are to be in their brochure, to be in the Brighton brochure, to do posters. I've even had AO post. I've never had an AO poster in my life, the huge ones. I've had quads, I've never done AO, and I've even had all the artwork done for that, and it's just, they weren't printed. But do the maths work? In 2021, what happens if a week before we go ahead, they say, part lockdown, you've got to do 50% capacity? If it's complete lockdown, we're fine, because then the venue can't expect me to pay money for a venue I haven't got into, unless they've got something in the contract that says, yeah, you do. But you see what I'm saying? There's a whole lot of logistic stuff. And I think all of us in kind of live events and performance, there's only so much we want to do on Zoom online. I understand the need to do it, and I'm doing my own bits, as I'm sure you are. And also it keeps your brand going. But really, how are we getting from here to having shows next year? Whether you're a DJ, whether you're a musician, whether you're a comic, how are we making it work? And for me, I'm going, this is a time now to start musing about it while I've got some mental space, because I'm not running around doing 5 gigs a week, which is what I normally would be doing. So I had to, how am I going to logistically make this work? Can we have a live feed in while I do the live show and charge people to do that? Although they don't get the live experience in the same way. So I haven't got the answers, but I do know that the way you solve everything and anything is you go, what is the point? Well, part of the point of gigging, of course, is to keep the brand. The Singing Psychic brand is a brand, that I can say that, like the Queen of the Fucking World thing is, but really Singing Psychic, so many people have seen her now over the years, and I love her almost as much as I love her. I love doing her. But if she doesn't keep on going and keep on working, then she dies. And I will not. That's my decision. My Queen character and my Singing Psychic character, they are not going to die. When I'm 80, which is a bit away, I am going to do a gig on my 80th birthday as a Singing Psychic. The difference is then I'm going to probably have some brilliant cane that's more like a lightsaber that can probably shoot musical notes around to people. I mean, I don't know what the tech is going to be like then. But I do know that this is an important time to dig my heels and go, how am I going to keep the brand moving forward while not saying to venues who also need to cover their own costs? So this is not me anti-venue. We're all in this together. But what happens if it all gets cancelled? We've all got to be, myself as the artist, the producer also in this case, I've got 2 hats, plus the venue, plus of course there's certain things that have to be paid, prepaid, because it's not fair for the venues either to have booked things and then everything gets cancelled, which is why so many people have had problems. But the more I think we can, compromise and be creative. There are solutions. Am I saying right now that I'm not going to do Brighton 21, even though it was time I felt to bring Singing Psychic and Queen there? Well, no, I've decided I'm going to pitch for it, because it feels like even if it's just going to be on a smaller scale. I'm not going to take as much risk. I'm not going to have. I've got to look at the costs on it. That I might have to do a shorter run. All those kind of questions, because I need to get back on stage. Having that email from that venue is brilliant, because it's made me go, I need to make decisions now, because normally the plan was I would have normally had loads. I was planning to go back to Australia next year. I haven't even booked that because I know they've just opened flights, but at the time of deadlines I hadn't. And again, it's what are the risks you're willing to take and you can financially afford to take. That if it all goes wrong and you're the one who's holding the red bucket with no money in it, then you've got to have that as a kind of reserve. So there we are. So that's me. So I hope you're well, and I keep saying this, it's going to happen. I am going to release my 2 lots of Get Your Art in Gear books and I decided to apportion one for kind of more of a, when you're starting a project or if you're new. Sometimes you're starting a project, aren't you, even if you're not new, but then also a bit more techie. But I'm going to do the whole finance section because I think this is the bit where I can probably give you value, if that makes any sense, because I'm so used to having to go, okay, I want to go and take these shows to Australia. How am I going to afford it? Am I going to make money? How am I going to pre-afford it? All those kind of questions. And now and audience numbers are never very predictable, but they're even less predictable than ever. So anyway, so I hope you're keeping sane. I've definitely been going, I'm trying to get out a bit and do a bit of exercise. When the gyms open next week, which hopefully they will in London, I'm going to be there pumping iron just to keep myself sane. And it'd be quite nice to ogle some attractive men. Just to look. I'll probably not start stalking anyone or taking secret photos and sending them to my friends. Honest. Okay, be well, lovelies. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Forget New York, Paris and Rome. I even love London in the rain.
Shopping at Portobello. Dining in restaurants on Dean Street. Watching beautiful boys strut bare.